Right now, we're all glued to our TVs, cheering on our Olympic swimmers and athletes representing our whole country in Tokyo. Well, back here at home, it's every state for itself in an ugly version of virus state of origin. Today, Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews, well, he didn't offer any help to New South Wales. His cases there lifted to a record high of 172. Instead, with gold medal arrogance, he just offered them a lecture, telling Gladys Berejiklian that she should impose a curfew on Sydney and surround the harbour city with a so-called Ring of Steel. The very same Ring of Steel, I might add, that in recent lockdowns, Victoria Police said, don't do it again, wasn't worth it, labour-intensive, costly, and Premier, it didn't work.
We're not being triumphant, we're not being boastful, we're not lecturing anybody, we're not into that. I've never done that, nor will I.
Sanctimonious. Well, Andrews went further today to excluding whole swathes of southern New South Wales, not currently in lockdown, not facing a COVID outbreak, from Victoria's border bubble. But he said he was too busy to pick up the phone as a matter of simple courtesy to tell this to his New South Wales counterpart. I mean, really, this is a bloke who put dodgy private security guards in charge of Melbourne's hotel quarantine last year. The virus got out, 700 new cases a day on peak days, 800 Victorians dead, and here he is with his lectures. Never forget Victoria, their sorry record.
I can't specifically recall.
I can't recall. I presume I did.
I don't recall the conversation.
And I have some memory, but not full memory.
I don't recall specifically.
Not to my recollection. I have no recollection of that.
I can't specifically recall.
They are shameless. Someone drew an interesting fact to my attention today. Look at those numbers in New South Wales, 172, as I said today. And then remember, Delta is 3 times more infectious than the earlier COVID variants we had last year. So if Andrews had 700 cases a day at the peak of the lockdown last year in Victoria, and Gladys is at 172 in New South Wales today, and her strain is 3 times more infectious than what he was dealing with, then as bad as it seems tonight in Sydney, it's nothing as bad as it was under Andrews. Take heart, New South Wales. Deaths too, 10 this year so far in New South Wales, 801 in Victoria last year, just the second wave alone. And when Andrews today boasted of defeating Delta twice, being the only country in the world, he said,
We have seen off 2 Delta outbreaks. I don't think there's a jurisdiction in the world that has been able to achieve that, and every Victorian should be proud of that.
What he didn't tell you was that while there was plenty of Delta around in the 4th lockdown, the last outbreak was made up of 6 times more Kappa than Delta. 90 cases of Kappa to 15 cases of Delta. But hey, why bother letting the facts get in the way of Andrew's spin? Now, as a Victorian, don't get me wrong, 185 days of lockdowns, I'm very happy to get some of my freedom back tonight at midnight. But as an Australian, I really dislike the whole cheap politics being played by some of the premiers at the moment, almost wallowing in the misfortune of Sydney-siders. And the same is true of Andrew's mate across the Nullarbor, Mark McGowan, who claims Gladys Berejiklian has made terrible mistakes, he says, in dealing with the virus. He says New South Wales residents are facing their moment of truth. McGowan should do much to remember the heavy lifting that New South Wales has done for him on quarantine, quarantining more than 3 times as many people as Western Australia has without shutting down a city on the back of 3 cases. Now, I get that it's hard to have open borders right now between the states, but we are one country. And if we can't open our borders to New South Wales, the rest of us, I reckon we should at least offer help. This is what a federation is supposed to be all about. The stronger states help the weaker ones, the richer states help the poorer ones. And when there's trouble in one state, we're all supposed to lend a hand. After all, many of us, don't we? We have family and friends right across the country, so what affects them affects us. When Victoria was in the midst of its deadly second wave, there were no lectures and political posturing elsewhere. New South Wales, in fact, gave us contact tracing teams to help our teams get up to speed. Well, Gladys Berejiklian are now begging for help from other states, especially for Pfizer jabs, so more people can get protected more quickly where the outbreak is the worst. All we're seeing are selfish and short-sighted refusals, because if this outbreak does get away, it's only a matter of time before it's back here in Victoria and elsewhere. We all want to be proud of our country as Australians, and we are, whenever Australians are at their best. Right now, though, it would be easy to be proud of the states if they showed just a little more compassion for each other and quit the political shots. And I'd say this to the Prime Minister. Clearly, your national cabinet decisions don't bind the states, regardless of the spin. They all do what they want anyway. So should you. Allocate the next incoming batch of Pfizer to New South Wales, because that's where the need is the greatest. And as our country's leader, these state stunts, they're beneath us. We are all Australians after all.